up and get down in Central Park starting June 16th. Get tickets at thediscoasis.com.
Listen, that was the voice of royalty right there, Heather B.
I know it.
Man, every time I see this man over the years, man, I know I made it.
I made it, mama. I made it.
That man says my name. What up, Sway? I made it.
Never could have made it.
I don't need a trophy. I don't need a plaque. This man has sold over 500 million records.
Damn.
I made it.
When I look back,
I made it.
I made it.
How many hits has he made for some of your favorite artists? Madonna owes him a hit.
Oh my God.
David Bowie owes him a hit.
He made it.
Lil Kim owes him a hit.
She
B.I.G.
made it.
owe him a hit. Pharrell owes him a hit.
Made it.
They all owe him hits.
Made it.
Sister Sledge owes him hits.
Made it.
Sugar Hill Gang owe him for a hit.
Wow, made it.
Come on, they all owe him for hits. I could keep going on and on, ladies and gentlemen. Nile Rodgers is back.
Yo. The legend.
Living legend right here, man. The iconic one. And how you been, brother?
I made it.
Yes.
Overworked and underpaid.
Oh, wow. Still? What you mean?
The amount of work that I put in, I don't think my remuneration is actually adequate. But I mean, I make good money, obviously.
Yeah.
But I just love working. I mean, it's my blessing and curse is that I have this insane work ethic. Yesterday I got up at 5 a.m. Today I got up at 5 a.m. I've been doing all sorts of stuff before I came to see you guys.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
it's crazy. But I guess I'm just happy to be employed.
There you go. I mean, how long you been in the business now? Well, okay, you don't have to say that, but you've been in the business for a while.
Yeah, I got my first job with Sesame Street at 17 and a half, 18, because I was with Luther Vandross, and I was in Luther's
button ready. Get the stun button ready.
Yeah.
Okay, go. You was with Luther. Go ahead.
I was in Luther's backup band, and they became the Young Americans.
Yeah.
And so when they went off with David Bowie, I then moved from Sesame Street to the Apollo Theater House Band. And then from the Apollo Theater House Band, I somehow was able to put together this concept that became Chic.
Wow. Thank you for the owls. I appreciate it.
That
how
sounds
Chic,
insane.
right? He just named David
Legend,
Bowie,
like just
Luther
legend,
Vandross,
legend,
and
legend,
went to
legend.
Chic. Which
Yeah.
is interesting to me because last time you was here, I told you how I got to know Chic is through my mother playing all the music. And I was reading something about you not too long ago because the whole disco era came up, and they were talking about Disco Sucks, which was a movement that kind of ended Chic's career on the charts.
Right.
And now we're here to celebrate the Disco Oasis that takes place in Central Park.
Crazy,
I
right?
can't wait.
Right?
I can't wait.
It came all the way
Crazy.
full circle in 2022. You brought disco back. Come on, man.
Wow.
Now Rodgers bringing it back.
Disco
He wasn't done.
Oasis.
You wasn't even a disco band. And we're an R&B band
Right,
that made
it's
disco
true.
hits.
Right,
Yeah.
But so tell us about what's going on in Central Park.
So what's happening is last year in Los Angeles, we opened up the first Disco Oasis, and it was an immersive, artistic, musical experience. But it was a roller skating. I mean, it's a disco roller rink. But we had we had routines. We had like pro skaters, and like in the daytime, we'd have kids come from the community. We'd help them learn how to skate, and it just became a love fest. And all of a sudden, we realized that the vibe that skating has always had never went away.
Yes.
It never went away. It was like, next thing you know, big movie stars are showing up with their kids and they're learning how to skate. And, people are coming from Long Beach, coming from the hood, and everybody's like, it was just a love fest. And we decided that we were going to, in the theater world, we called it, travel, like it was going to go on the road, so to speak. And we started to negotiate with different municipalities, and it was going to, thinking about either Paris or Miami. Because the great thing about Los Angeles, now ecologically speaking, it was somewhat of a disaster, because the reason why we were able to do this is because a lake bed had dried up. Okay. And we took this dried up lake bed and we built a skating rink that was the size of a football field with palm trees growing out the middle of it and the whole bit. And it was the most exotic looking thing. And so people loved it. And it was like, damn, I think we got something here. So, you know, we won't have that kind of success in New York because it does rain here, even when we have pretty bad droughts. But you know, the Oasis is coming back to New York,
June 16th.
Yeah, it's going to be a vibe, and it's funny too because you know, I've watched this happen before. Like when we did it in L.A., like there was like just an open field, and the next thing you know, you see the trucks rolling in and moving this, and you see the stage built, and next thing you know, we have a structure that's 3 stories high and palm trees that are 80 to 90 feet high with like an 8, 9, 10-story building, and it was like Disneyland. So I think that what's going to wind up happening in New York is when people see the structure go up, because yesterday we had a press conference and it was still just Woolman skating rink. It was just, you know, it's like, wait till y'all see this.
You wait till you see what we do. Wait till you
wait
get a
till you
load
see
of
this shit. That's what you wanted to say.
Nah,
I got you, baby.
I saw it. We'll curse for you, man. Don't worry. We got you.
All right, there you curse for me. It's like, so you all are just watching us skate around, but wait till you see this shit. Wow. I'm so proud of our, you know, of just the whole artistic crew, the set designers, I mean, you have no idea the calories that go into building some
calories. I like that.
Me too.
June 16th, this is taking place. It's the summer of skate in New York City. So the Disco Oasis is in Central Park. It's immersive, as they say. It's glimmery, roller disco paradise, as Niles is so eloquently describing right now. And Citizens is the caveat. This whole team right here, Heather B, a.k.a. H. Billy, Tracy G.T. Money, Mike Muse, Mike Music, and myself, Sway Legacy, we're going to host
absolutely
something.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. Come on.
We got to figure that out.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay, cool,
It'll
man.
Be great.
It'll be an honor to host for you. I'm just fascinated by your career. You know, I've read about you more than once. I even read over about you. And so when I hear you say things like, I'm overworked and underpaid.
Right. It's concerning.
It's concerning because you are at the top of the food chain, and if you still feel like you overpaid,
I'm
underpaid. Sorry
about
my bad.
Overpaid.
Underpaid. So let me ask you this. I know you made a lot of money in your time, but what percentage of the money you made for others do you think you received? Like,
wow.
You know what I mean? Like,
you know, Sway, what I'm probably very proud of, but as a businessman, it's not proud. But was the fact that I did what I did because I loved doing it, and I was fortunate enough to have my voice heard. And as a black man, I mean, how many times do you go into a situation and you really are offering up the right thing? It's exactly what the situation needs, but they look at it from a different perspective, a different angle. They think that you're not as sophisticated as one should be to handle this particular problem. And I'm like going, guys, I got this. Yeah. And it's almost like I have to keep auditioning and saying, I got this.
Nile Rodgers has to keep auditioning. That sounds crazy. Do you think some of it has to do with, because we have the conversation here a lot about not knowing the history of hip hop? You know, do you think a lot of it has to do with not knowing history of someone like you or history of the culture itself? Because honestly, if I was in any office and you walked in, I would just open up the checkbook. Whatever this man wants, let him go ahead. Just give it to him. I don't care if he screws it up. He's done enough in his culture. That's what I would do because I respect what you've done and I know your history. So you feel like maybe it could be a lack of knowledge?
Yeah, I would say, culturally, I mean, we really have to be honest here. Culturally, we don't spend a huge amount of time learning about our history and learning about the past. When I was younger, I came from a generation that, of course, we concentrated on that more. And, Sway knows, I used to be a subsection leader in the Black Panther Party here in New York City. So it was all about learning about the culture. It was all about going out and working in the community. And so I just felt like, that was natural to me. But people have explained to me as time has moved forward that one day, I'm going to go off track here. Okay. One day I went to lunch with Deepak Chopra, and he said something.
Nice.
He
button.
He said something to me. He said something to me that I'll probably be lying on my deathbed, and I'll say, yes, I hear you, Deepak. He said that technology can be beautiful and diabolical, just like people.
Yes.
And what's happened is that this when I was a kid, I had everybody's number memorized, right? I used to wake up in the morning. Yeah, I used to wake up in the morning and I'd say, okay, I got to go to this session, that session, open up my little book, my little daily programmer, and knew I had to go to 125th Street, then go right from there to so-and-so. Oh, man, then we got to do this quick little rehearsal over at CCNY and, and things like that. But now I only have one phone number memorized, like only one. Because
Whose number?
My girlfriend.
Yeah. You better. You better.
Up in there, baby. All right. You better
it's
memorize
the only
that.
one I can actually dial it.
Yeah.
And that's just to say that what's happened is that because we're not forced to use our brains just to maneuver around our regular world. Like we don't wake up in the morning and go, damn, I got to call someone.
Yeah.
We just hit auto dial and whatever. And I think that though we have access to more information, it isn't internalized. So that's the thing.
It doesn't retain.
See, that's the disconnect, is that without internalization, you don't feel it. So a person can sit there and give you all the stats in the world and say, yeah, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that. But you don't necessarily feel it.
Yeah.
Because you haven't done the research.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, but once you do the work, you
feel it. Yeah. And you want others to feel it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd be upset when they don't know.
Right. You say to yourself, then you didn't know that?
Yeah.
So I don't I don't have a feeling of like bitterness. I don't like walking how come people don't know me, because I'm just not that dude.
Yeah.
But I do find it interesting that it becomes harder sometimes to explain to a person. Like sometimes a person will play a cut to me and they didn't even know that I wrote it. There was an artist that I used to work with. Check
Break
this out.
that down.
There was an artist I used to work with a lot named Avicii. Unfortunately, rest in peace, he's not here.
Yes.
But Avicii had a lot of hit records. When we would sit down and write together, he would say, damn, I woke up in the morning, man, and I was inspired by this. And I would look at him and I would say, thank you. And he'd go, what do you mean? I said, yo, Tim, I wrote that shit.
And he didn't know?
Wow. He had no idea. A lot of people are like that, though. They would have no idea.
Let me ask you about Avicii, because I heard you wanted to release some unreleased music of his.
Well, his family wants to do it.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think in my heart if I feel comfortable with that. I have a good vibe with his father and his family. But sometimes you understand an artist and you understand where they're coming from and what they wouldn't have wanted you to do.
Yeah.
And I always try and look at it from the artist side, because sometimes the family, they don't know them as well as a producer knows them.
Right.
My relationship with Avicii was very close, and you have to play psychologist a lot of times.
With the artist and the family. But the family, the conundrum is, the family has an idea of how they want to keep the legacy alive, number one. And then number two is an economy behind releasing that music,
Exactly.
right? They could have some income behind that. So is that a part of the factoring?
I really don't feel that that's the motivation, because I think they're quite well off. And the country of Sweden has shown him incredible love. The stadium is named after Avicii now.
The museum that they just opened for him.
No, the stadium, the sports stadium.
Is named after. That was DB over there, voice right there.
Okay. I read that they had also opened a museum that was dedicated to his life.
I'm sure they did.
Because last month was the 4-year anniversary of his passing.
That's
and so
exactly right.
I wanted to ask you about, because fame was hard for Avicii to deal with.
Right.
And when he dropped levels, it was like he went from sort of the guy who was just starting his career to worldwide fame.
Right.
That's not easy for a lot of people to take in. And so I wondered if you could speak to, for someone who's new, and then if they drop a hit that automatically takes off, spreads worldwide, and they go from relatively unknown, producer, whatever, to worldwide stages, festivals, and all that, how to deal with that fame when it happens so quickly.
I think someone like Lil Nas X is a great example of how to keep it together, because you go from what, like you said, like total obscurity to like being one of the biggest artists in the world. I think a lot of artists have to understand that you're an artist because you are making art, and you get the privilege of making that for a living. And if you cling to that ideology first, that I'm an artist and that'll get me through the good times and the bad times, and I don't necessarily need the praise of others. I don't necessarily have to feel the pain from others, because Avicii was getting a lot of pain from people because they felt like, this kid just came out of nowhere, and like you said, when he dropped levels, it was just everywhere in the world, and they felt like he wasn't qualified to call himself a DJ. And it was like, well, maybe he doesn't really call himself a DJ. The business calls himself. I call Avicii an artist, a composer, a producer, which is what he was. Yeah. And he had the luck to be able to perform on his own platform, his own music on his own platform for 70,000, 100,000 people. Like, damn, who wouldn't want to do that? Like, hey, wait a minute, man, listen to what I did this morning. Check this out. I came from a background that was similar, right? So I could go to a club, hook up with my friend who would be a DJ, and slip it to him and say, when you get a minute, take a listen to this. When you feel like you can slip it in, which is what we used to say. So,
like, randomly while you were talking, I Googled Nile Rodgers top 10 songs. Okay. 50 of them just showed up. So I had to find another list to just like, hey, y'all, give me 10. Because I put top 10 Nile Rodgers songs and 50 showed up. So just for y'all to understand what we're talking about here, Sway, myself, Tracy, Mike Muse. At number 10, The Wild Boys by Duran Duran. At number 9, Material Girl by Madonna. Yep. At number 8, Upside Down by Diana Ross. Number 7, The Reflex by Duran Duran. Number 6, Let's Dance, David Bowie. Come on, Sway. Number 5, We Are Family, Sister Sledge. Baby. Number 4, Like a Virgin,
Madonna.
Number 3, Good Times,
Chic.
Number 2, I'm gonna trip Sway on this one, y'all.
Damn.
Get Lucky.
Daft Punk and Pharrell.
Number 1, La Freak.
Chic.
That's just 10. They were like, okay, we'll give you 10. That's just 10 off the.
La Freak is bigger than all of those songs?
Yeah. Yes. Well, remember, that was the day of selling singles, right? And
okay.
Like, it's come back to that now. And the market was all about selling singles, and at that time we lucked up on an idea. So what we were trying to do, I don't want to make the story too long, but we
you want me to tell it?
You know the whole story?
Y'all sold about 7 million in the United States. Right. You wanted to stop the sales of the singles because you wanted to release a second single. You didn't want to outsell yourself. Right. So
Sway will be hosting that disco party for sure. Disco Oasis. June 16th.
Come on, man.
Yo, Niles was like, damn, Sway.
Stop playing with me, Niles.
Wow.
Don't play with me.
So, we cut off our sales to try and sell more albums.
Yo,
Ooh, that's your guy.
bigger than Like a Virgin.
They cut off their sales though, Heather.
We cut it off because we wanted people to hear the rest of our album. We had I Want Your Love on there, and Happy Man, and all that stuff. And we knew that as black artists, we were only going to get one, maybe two singles.
looks, yeah.
That's a good
Right?
point.
And but what happened is that it's kept selling. So it wound up being the biggest selling single in Atlantic Records history then. And then for a short period of time, Flo Rida passed us. But because of streaming, we went back to some insane number.
That's
'Cause
right.
It keeps selling.
Tracy G.
Yes, I definitely want to jump in. Mr. Rodgers, when you had said that being an artist is what you are first, right? You had mentioned that, and I know that the only number that you have memorized is your girlfriend. And it made me think, like, did you ever have to find a balance between is artistry first now or is being a partner first now? Is artistry first now or is being a son first now? Because sometimes when folks are just in a flow and you're like, all I want to do is focus on the craft, these other roles that we play in our lives can maybe perhaps appear secondary, or folks are like, listen, I know that you're famous and you have these other responsibilities. Was it ever difficult for you to put other things first?
That's my life. I have to do that all the time. If you were a fly on the wall in my apartment yesterday, you would have seen a perfect example of the complete madness that is my life. So I'm launching Disco Oasis, and we're having the time of our lives in Central Park with the mayor and doing that. Meanwhile, I have my family to deal with. Meanwhile, I have a very large business to deal with, and then I'm also working on a couple of records at the same time. So all of this stuff is happening. Everybody wants to be prioritized, and in my brain, I have to make a decision that there has to be a priority list, but to the person I'm dealing with, they have to feel like they're the main priority.
Yeah.
You can't give any one of them a sort of secondary type of feeling. They have to feel like, right at this moment, I'm at your
You have my full attention.
full
Yeah.
attention and focus. And it's rough, but I chose this life.
There you go. I
So
love it.
and believe me, I'm not complaining. I'm fortunate. I'm one of the lucky ones, because that gives me a sense of balance. It says, okay, well, you're working on this record and it's important, and and I hope it's a smash and I hope it kills and all that. But at the same time, my little brother just got into an accident, and so and so, and you gotta really be there, and
You got to look them in the eye too.
yeah.
Exactly.
My mom passed away just a little more than a year ago, and
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. When I was coming home from work, and they called me and they said, we don't believe your mother is going to last through the night.
Wow.
I'm like going, my mom lives in Las Vegas. You're calling me now, telling me that I got to get to Las Vegas now? And it was like, and this is at a point when COVID was raging. And so I had to rent a jet. And this was, I'm not the private jet kind of guy, because I have a charity that I could bring, 30 kids in from Africa, So I said, well, okay, how much is the jet? Because now I want to be with my mom.
Of course.
Oh, it's 200. Like what?
What?
I'm saying to go to Vegas is $35,000. I've done this before,
Wow.
and they said no. There's only one jet available, and it has to be a heavy, and blah blah blah, and this and that, and the crew can't use your head, and so that became my priority, and I had to do that, and that's just my life is like that all the time.
Wow.
But I love it.
Well, we are, man.
We get a chance.
And your locks are long.
Yeah.
They are.
Looking good. Yeah, looks really
Looking
great.
really good.
Niles, I have a question for you, man. I'm curious about the muse of your creative work? Because we always say music is the soundtrack of life. For you, the music you create is a soundtrack of fun. And so I'm just curious, like, what was the muse of your work? That were you always in the nightclubs? Like, are you a party guy? Like,
Was it a lady?
You created soundtracks of fun, bro.
So I used to be a jazz snob. I used to study with this brilliant musician named Ted Dunbar, and he said to me one day, when I came in with a sourpuss look on my face, he said, damn, what's wrong, young blood? You're always so happy. What's wrong today? And I said, well, Ted, I got to play this bullshit boogaloo. And, unfortunately, see, boogaloo, we use the term incorrectly. At a certain point in time, jazz musicians who used to have to do what we would call pickup gigs in New York, boogaloo was a derogatory term that we used for all pop music. In fact, boogaloo was soul music played by Latin artists, right? So it was like, beep, 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 and and all that, those kind of tunes. And boogaloo was the bomb. But we were just, I got to play this book. And to jazz musicians, they knew what you meant. So I showed him the set list, and I said, look at what we got to start with tonight. This song by the Archies, Sugar, Sugar. And he looked at me and said, well, what's wrong, blood? What's up? What's the problem? I said, man, I don't want to play that bull. Like, damn, Sugar, Sugar. And he said, Nile, do you realize that Sugar, Sugar has been #1 for about 6 weeks? And I said, yeah. He said, well, so wait a minute, let me get this right. So those millions of people who bought Sugar, Sugar, they're wrong, but you, Mr. Nile Rodgers, you're the one who's right?
Yeah.
And he was really, like, teaching me a lesson, and it was the greatest lesson ever. He said, and you guys remember this, he said, this is when the top 40 meant something. He said to me, any song in the top 40 is a great composition. I said, what? How could you say something so ridiculous? He says, because any song in the top 40 is a great composition because it speaks to the souls of a million strangers.
Ooh.
Wow. I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks later, I wrote, everybody dance.
Clap your hands.
Clap your hands.
Nile Rodgers,
That
man.
was it.
I want to ask you about publishing because, it's this famous story about Michael Jackson obtaining the Beatles publishing, right? And how valuable that was and how shrewd he was as a businessman. First, what was your relationship with Michael Jackson like?
It was great.
Yeah.
We first met in 1973. We did a couple of gigs with them when they were on the American leg of their first world tour. So I think the official bands that were the opening acts were the Commodores and the OJs. And we were in a group called New York City, and we would sub for the OJs whenever the OJs had a gig paying more money. Wow. So Michael and I, we met on the tour bus because I guess they didn't want to spend that much money, so the opening band had to ride with the Jacksons.
Oh, wow.
Or the Jackson 5. And so Michael somehow gravitated towards me because I was the guy who was like the outcast in my group, which was a real R&B soul brothers, but I was like a hippie, Black Panther, purple hair kind of dude, like. So I didn't fit in, but Bernard, my bass playing partner, just says, this brother plays guitar, like, we'll put up with him.
Bernard Edwards.
Yes. He was my man. He looked out for me because I was born in Greenwich Village. I came from a whole different background, very open-minded, So anyway, Michael and I were tight, and we were tight until the end.
Wow.
We could have a whole show on my relationship with Michael.
You gonna come back and talk to him?
Yeah, we could do it. It'd be great.
Because I would love to just know who he was to you.
My relationship with him was totally different than other people.
You said he gravitated towards you. Did he tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Nile"? Like, how did y'all start communicating?
No, we were sitting in the tour bus next to each other. I mean, it's not a lot of room on the tour bus when you got the Jackson 5 and New York City. So we were just all on the bus, and this was probably a short hop. I remember we were in Gary, Indiana, and I guess that's where they were from. And damn, the smog in that bad boy, it was like all red. We're like, whoa, what's up, Pete? But anyway, talk about redlining. It was a real philosophy in Gary. So we were going from Gary to like Chicago or Detroit or something, and on that leg, he and I, we were talking, and I was sitting next to him reading comic books. Now his father Joe, he ran that group like he was Putin, right? So he was like the man, and I was an anti-authority dude. You know, like you couldn't tell me. You know, if you said one thing to me that I didn't agree with, I was like gone because I just want to be playing jazz. I'll go back to Harlem and play up at IS 201. I'm fine. So I had these comic books that on the surface looked like, if you looked at the cover, it looked like we were reading like, you know, Archie and Jughead. But what happened was inside I put in like the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, and they were talking about smoking weed. And,
Nile Rodgers was a piece of work.
He corrupted Michael.
So Joe would come on the bus and see us. Even though he hated me, he would see me reading to Michael, and he would go, "Oh man, that's so cute. Thank you, man. It's cool, brother Joe." And Michael and all the other guys would be like, you know, wanting to laugh. So, but getting back to your point, the publishing bit.
Yes.
Now we're going off in a different area.
We love your tangents.
Because a lot of artists didn't understand the value of publishing early on, and that the music that you were writing held value, and how to actually obtain it and claim it.
Right.
What was your experience, and how much of your music do you own publishing of?
So that's my big business now.
Okay.
I have a business called Hypnosis, and what we do, you probably have noticed in the news, huge superstars selling their catalogs.
Yes.
That's because we started this trend. We started buying catalogs at a multiple that people thought was absurd. And when we would go out and do our little dog and pony show and say, look, we can prove that that songs, especially hit songs, have a value that is a real value, that we can actually make this we could prove that this was a viable entity to invest in, and we could just show you the earnings, and we could say that it's okay to pay this much of a multiple for that, because those earnings will go on forever. As a matter of fact, with streaming, those earnings are getting higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
And we could prove that for the first time. And I could even just use my own catalog and say, look, I never ever had a royalty from Thailand before, but look, here's a whole readout of royalties from Thailand, because I have so many songs that get played all over the world. Anyway, people started to listen, they started to hear us, and we started purchasing big catalogs, Dream and others.
So the Dream sold his catalog to you.
Us, yeah.
Wow.
So I know Wayne sold some catalog, Lil Wayne sold some catalog as well. Others have done it. So that's who we had the Dream come up here and talking about that.
Yeah.
Did he mention Nile in the conversation?
No, he better not. No. He's my boy.
Okay.
I had no idea it
lot
was
of
sold to
value.
you. I knew he sold it, but I didn't know he sold it to you.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, at least he keeping it in the family.
That's what I was getting to.
Right.
Because what's happening is it's getting sold a lot of private equity firms on Wall Street. So it's a big pickup for Wall Street.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift, a lot of other individuals.
They're copying our model.
I had no idea, sir. That's amazing. Congratulations to you.
So
Because
what he
Dream
just
came
said?
up here smiling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
But you hear what he
The
just-
brother is smiling.
They're copying his model.
They
Wow.
are. That's what I'm saying. I had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
They still taking.
Yeah.
Still taking. Yeah.
So we have an extraordinary amount of #1 records. I mean, you just think about Dream. I mean, with Beyonce and
Rihanna.
exactly. And we have. I mean, a lot.
You got a lot.
I don't want to brag, just a lot.
Okay.
And we're still continuing on the path. So we're. I just looked at the market this morning. And so today there was a nice little bit of a bump in the, this
Nice
morning
little
after-
bit of a bump.
Came
Even the
in here
language.
smiling.
For the last 3 weeks, it's been like bloodletting, but today looked a little promising. But if you look at where we're closing, we rarely have gone down below a certain point, and when we get there, we don't stay there. And because the thing is that music.
Ow.
Music is uncorrelated to the other things in the market. Like when times are bad, people are listening to music. When times are good, people are listening to music. And now because we have a mechanism in place that music is always being tracked digitally, we're able to prove.
You owe me.
Is a
That's right.
I'm sorry, that's my language. Listen, Nile Rodgers, thank you. I know you have to go, but man, listen, come back.
Yeah.
Well, right, listen, are you based? Where you based out of?
Miami.
Miami. We got an office in Miami.
Yeah.
We'll come down there and broadcast.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Okay, we could do this because I want to
Yeah.
do more of this with you. I want to
Yeah.
continue to have these conversations because every time we speak, we find out more information.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And I think that's important. I think your words are powerful, they're knowledgeable, they're insightful. So inspirational, so folks hear it. And this man, keep in mind, beat cancer. You know what I mean?
Twice.
Like, twice.
Come on.
Twice. Come on, give that man a round of applause. This man, look at his locks.
I made it.
We got to talk about your journey with your locks. There's a lot we
Yes.
haven't touched on. But now, Rodgers, listen, citizens, come join us June 16th. All right, we'll be in Central Park. It's
Roller
the Summer of
skating.
Skate in New York City. Disco Oasis in Central Park. If you want to find out how to be a part of it and purchase tickets, go to thediscoasis.com.
There you go.
Thediscoasis.com.
Spell it out,
1-0.
Sway.
Yeah.
THEDISCOASIS. Discoasis.com. Come celebrate with us. We'll be there.
You roller skating, Sway?
Come on, I'm from Oakland.
Well, he gets down.
You know, my shake, rock, roll, bounce, skate is
There you
ridiculous. Come on, don't do that to me, HB.
I ain't seen you on skates before. Now you pushing it. I never
okay.
seen you on skates.
You know. I ain't gonna say no in front of Nile. All right, man. Well, thank you for coming through,
right,
brother.
thank you for
Love
having me.
you,
Yes.
man. Love
Love
you.
you.
And
Appreciate you.
Up
Good
next,
to see y'all again. Thank you.
Thank